Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat for the Grateful Giraffes. We are extremely excited to have Jack Yeatman here to talk about Neurogen brain balancing. And before we get into today's topic, I just want to share. What is the Grateful Giraffes in case any of you are watching this replay or on YouTube and you're not a part of our community. So, the Grateful Giraffes is a vibrant community of over 800 members who value gratitude, wellness, and impact. And we're also very spiritual and grounded at the same time. We come together to co create meaningful experiences while building community owned lifestyle brand dedicated to human flourishing. So, if you're interested in the Grateful Giraffes, you can watch our YouTube channel for the past fireside chats or go to gratefulgiraffes.com. Now, like I mentioned, today we have the honor of having Jack Yeatman here. So, Jack is a neurogen practitioner helping people with neurofeedback therapy. He originally started his career in the medical industry in medical sales, where he worked with orthopedic and neurosurgeons on spinal procedures. Although medical sales was extremely intense and rewarding career, he decided to make a career switch and become a neurogen practitioner after he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and had a year off to recover. So in November of this past year, in 2023, he officially opened the Neurogen office in LA. So we're really excited to welcome Jack here and have him share his wealth of knowledge and information. So thank you, Jack, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yay! Yes, we're getting hand claps in the videos as well. I love that. We would love for you to share a little bit about your journey and how you ended up on this path of helping people with neural feedback, especially with Neurogen.
Sure. Yeah. I moved to Los Angeles over 8 years ago, and my journey here took a lot of different turns, but I'll kind of cut out the first half of it and get into the past 4 years. I was working in medical sales, as you said. I was working with orthopedic and neurosurgeons and spinal surgery every day. So I was in the operating room all day, every day. Which at first was a great industry to be in, and then it just became extremely stressful. I was on call all day, all night. If I had a surgery on a weekend and I was at a dinner, I had to stop and leave and head to another surgery. And so, because of that constant stress, I actually started having these random stomach pains. It started back in this October of 2021, and then through all of 2022 with the stress of my job, it just started progressively getting worse and worse until I have what I call a near-death experience in December of 22. I was really sick, and then I went in and found out I had a pretty severe case of Crohn's disease. And so all of last year, all of 2023, I took the entire year off from work because I was extremely sick. So it was all, I had to focus completely on myself. And I realized, health obviously is the most important thing in the world. And so through all that, I had a very spiritual, holistic health and wellness, natural, life-changing experience all of last year. And because of that, while I was going through all different treatments and therapies and trying all sorts of supplements and remedies, while curing myself 100% naturally, I started doing neurogen sessions as well. My parents are actually the co-founders of the company. It started 6 years ago in San Diego, where I'm from. And so while I was going through these physical changes in my body, I lost 40 pounds in the span of 2 months. I couldn't walk. I couldn't lift my arms. I was extremely sick. And I started while I was, it was the first time in my life where my mental health started to go. I was getting depressed because of the rapid decline in my life. And I thought maybe there wasn't an answer for me because I'd tried so many different outlets and nothing was working. And then finally, in July of 2023, last year, I had to move back home with my parents in San Diego. And that's when I started combining a holistic supplement regimen with Neurogen. And because because my mental health was declining, my physical health was declining, and it was this rapid decline. And so I started combining Neurogen with this holistic practice. And over the course of a week, my health started to improve. I started doing Neurogen sessions. It pulled me out of my funk. It pulled me out of my hole. And physically, I started to feel better. And so all of last year was really learning about myself. And through all of this, because of the wonderful experience I had with Neurogen and the profound impact it had on my life, I decided to become a Neurogen practitioner myself, because I wanted to help individuals that have gone through the issues that I've gone through myself. So I launched the practice in Santa Monica in November of last year. And it's gone extremely well so far. I mean, it's still a new business, so it has its ups and downs, but it's been wonderful to be able to help individuals with issues that I've gone through, and make a pretty big impact on a lot of people's lives.
Wow, what an incredible story. And, there's a lot of resilience that I hear in that, and just continuing to figure out, what would work for you to help you through, some of the hard medical challenges that you are facing. So kudos for you for going on that journey and being able to come out on the other side. I would love for you to share a little bit about, what is neurofeedback, what is neurogen, because a lot of people might not know and understand what that is, and why is it important to practice and do for yourself.
Sure. So neurofeedback's actually been around since the 50s. It's pretty well known in the medical field. However, just among the common folk, I think if you went to a dinner party and there was 20 people, maybe two or three have even heard of it, let alone know what it is. And so neurofeedback, there's many different forms of what it is, but essentially it's through the use of EEG leads. It's a way for us to track and monitor your brain waves. And so essentially everybody has certain imbalances within their brain. Some are just way worse than others. And when you have these severe imbalances within your brain, it can lead to blockages within our neural receptors and our neural pathways. And those blockages present themselves in a multitude of different issues, whether it's anxiety, depression, PTSD, insomnia, addiction, migraines, the list really goes on. And so what I do during these sessions is through the use of EEG leads, I go in real time, I locate those blockages or those imbalances. And when I locate them, I do what's called an exposure. An exposure is where I'm actually stimulating that region of the brain. And so when I stimulate that region, I'm sending a very, very, very gentle electrical current to that region. The amount of electricity I'm using is 1,000,000 times less than touching our cell phone. So us being on our phones all day is doing more damage to our brain than my system could ever do. But what that does when you stimulate that region, it promotes new healthy red blood cells and blood flow to that area, which opens up that blockage, alleviating the symptom that you're dealing with.
Well, I had no idea like that you could do that.
Yeah.
Is it just basically like retraining the brain then?
Exactly. The one analogy I use, it's like taking your brain to the gym. We go to the gym for our bis and tris and abs and every other muscle in our body, but we don't do anything for the most important muscle in our body, which is the brain. And so this is kind of like taking your brain to the gym. Our brains are neuroplastic, and so I'm working on your neuroplasticity. I'm working and reteaching your brain to a new way of living, a new way of functioning, allowing us to function at an optimal level.
That's amazing. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that we have to like it's a muscle for us as well too to work out. We think of our
Yeah.
physical body, but we don't think about like the internal pieces of it. How often do people have to do this? Like is it like a one session thing? Is it like a over time? Like how long do you have to train your body and your brain for neurofeedback?
So it's different person to person. At first, if somebody's really, really struggling, I say I want to see them at least twice a week for the first couple of weeks. Um, Technically, you only need a sleep cycle in between a session. So let's say I did a session today at 8 p.m. You go to sleep tonight. You wake up tomorrow at 8 a.m. You can technically do another session. I very, very, very rarely do that, if ever, just because our brain is actually still continuing to balance itself out, even 24, 48 hours after your session. So I like to spread out my sessions to see how you continue to respond after that. But anytime I'm seeing a new client, everybody responds to the treatment differently. But if I'm seeing a first time client, I want to see you at least once a week to start. And then, as we progress and as you react and respond to the treatment, we can kind of taper off from there to where I get you to a place where, like myself, for instance, I'm somebody, I don't need it frequently anymore, thankfully. I do what I call tune-ups. So I do a tune-up session maybe once every 4 months.
Wow. There's just so much here like
Yeah.
to learn. I'm like, this is such a new like field that I don't have much exposure in. And so it's really fascinating to hear. What kind of like I guess what kind of diseases or what kind of like mental imbalances do you most think that this is effective for, or do you most see? Because I feel like some people might be like, oh, maybe like sometimes I get a little sad. Do I need this? Do I not need it? Does everybody need this? Like, do you have to have like a major disease to come in? Like, what is most common?
So, I mean, and essentially everybody could benefit from this. The most common three symptoms that I treat are anxiety, depression, and insomnia. That being said, the list really goes on. But also, I have a lot of friends that when I tell them about what I do and say I work, primarily in the health field, but mainly the mental health field, a lot of my friends say, "Oh, Neurogen's not for me because I don't have any of those severe issues." What I say to that is Neurogen is for everybody. Everybody has certain imbalances in their brain. And also, you don't need it just for these severe issues. It can help with your academic or your athletic performance. It can help with your overall mental well-being. It can help with your motivation. It can help with your executive function. The list really goes on. It can help with just overall mental clarity. So really, anybody can benefit from this. I'll tell you a quick story. When my parents founded the company 6 years ago, obviously I was seeing, them doing session after session on so many different people because it had a really profound impact on both of my siblings. And so I wanted to give it a try. And when I first tried it, for lack of a better term, my brain was balanced. So I didn't really notice the differences over the first, 4 or 5 sessions. It wasn't until I started suffering from really debilitating migraines. I was getting multiple migraines per week for the better part of a year, and nothing was working. I was seeing neurologists, and absolutely nothing was working. And I went home to San Diego and I did 2 Neurogen sessions, and I haven't had a migraine in 3 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so like amazing how the body can heal itself and through with the right tools that we utilize to help it heal itself. And that's amazing. People like live with migraines and they don't know how to get out of it. And this is
I,
one of the
I was one of those people, definitely.
wow.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about the difference between neurogen and neurofeedback? Is it like since you said there's like lots of different types of neurofeedback
Sure.
there?
So Neurogen is neurofeedback. Neurogen's just the name of the company, but it is a form of neurofeedback therapy. That being said, there are many different forms of neurofeedback therapy, most of which are what we call active neurofeedback. So active neurofeedback is you go into an office, you either wear an EEG cap, which looks like a swimming cap with EEGs all around it, or you just have leads and you put them in 2 locations for the duration of the session. And you sit in front of a computer screen sometimes between 2 to 3 hours, and you play what are called mind games, where they throw numbers and pictures and colors and images at you, and it tracks your brain waves to see how you respond. One thing with that is, one, it's really time consuming. I mean, not a lot of people can take 2 to 3 hours out of the middle of their day to go in for these sessions. And two, it's also really physically exhausting sitting and playing these brain games for multiple hours. So that's active neurofeedback. My system is completely different than that. We're what we call passive neurofeedback. So during a session, all you have to do, you come in, you can sit back, you can relax, you can fall asleep if you want. The session takes anywhere between 15 to 25 minutes, depending on the different protocols that I'm giving you. But you just have to sit there, relax. You do not feel a thing. It's risk and pain free. And yeah, it's a quite relaxing experience.
I like that.
Yeah,
I just want to relax. I don't want to do more work. So
exactly.
that's amazing. Um, how what are your thoughts about combining, neurogen or neurofeedback with other forms of therapy? Max asked, like, if we could connect this with talk therapy, like he's wondering how the results would look because as you're, working on your past traumas, you can also do the feedback. Have you had any experience with that? What are your thoughts?
What I say to that is you can combine Neurogen with anything and everything. There's no, if you're doing Neurogen, you have to stop doing this. You can combine Neurogen with anything, whether that's certain medications you're taking, certain other modalities that you're using. Neurogen just assists. It's not going to replace anything else. Maybe eventually it will. I kind of try to wean people off certain things. But if that's not what you're comfortable with and you want to stick with what works for you, Neurogen is just an assistant. And I'm not. It can be combined with any other modality, holistic practice, whatever you name it. Neurogen can help assist with it.
That's awesome. I think there's like so many ways we can utilize it, and it's like, how do we become the most, I guess, do it the most optimal way for ourselves? And that's amazing that it's just like a tool to assist you in the process of retraining your brain. Um, in terms of, the sessions, we talked a little bit about how many, but like I would love to talk a little bit about the process and what people feel in it because I think a lot of people get scared. I know you said it was just like a light current that goes through, like people don't really feel like what do you expect? Do they get vivid dreams afterwards? Like what happens in a session or after a session as your brain is being rewired and new neuroplasticities are being formed?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good question. It's honestly the most common question that I get asked. One, how am I supposed to feel after this? And two, when am I going to start seeing the results? I unfortunately don't have a definitive answer to that question because everybody's brain is so completely different. Their issues are different. The severity of those issues are different. What I can say to people is about 90% of the people I work with really start to notice the effects between the 3 to 5 session range. That being said, I actually think it's more common than not that people start to notice something after that first session. If you have an immediate reaction, some of the most common immediate reactions are one, you could feel really relaxed. Two, you could feel really relaxed but have a lot of energy, which is a result of clearing brain fog and helping with mental clarity. You can also feel really productive. You could have, a bit of a euphoric feeling, just helping with overall mental clarity and happiness. So those are just some of the most common immediate reactions. You could also feel really sleepy. I always preface this with first-time clients. There's only two potential side effects that can stem from Neurogen. Neither of them are bad, but I always want to make everyone aware of them. The first one is you could just feel really sleepy after a session. It's not like you can't drive a car or anything. You just feel a bit exhausted. The second one is not nearly as common, but certainly has happened, is you can just experience a light headache later on in the day after that first session. The way to combat that is just make sure you stay really hydrated. Our brain is 70% water, and when you're moving a bunch of blood and promoting new blood flow circulating around the brain, if you're dehydrated, that's what causes that headache. So we actually view both of those reactions as a really positive sign because it means your brain is really trying to balance itself out and correct itself.
Wow, I just learned a new fact. I didn't realize the brain was like 70% water. I knew our bodies were. I didn't think about the brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something, yeah, it doesn't come top to mind. AJ asked, like, how can neurofeedback be used for severe cases of PTSD? Like, how does this work?
It's actually the company was founded to support veterans with severe TBI and PTSD. We actually have founded a foundation called Brain Balancing for Vets, where any veteran they receive their first 4 neurogen sessions for free. So they come in, get free sessions, don't have to pay a cent. And we've worked with over 5,000 veterans around the country. The company was founded by my father and then Greg Gillespie, who are both veterans themselves. So when they first launched this company, it was to support veterans with severe PTSD. The results have been fantastic. You can go on my Instagram page. I just posted a video of a veteran that I've been working with for the past couple of weeks who's was in a really dark hole, and he tried anything for 15 years and absolutely nothing was working. And after his 4 sessions, he came into me crying because he said, I finally found something that has changed my life. So yeah, PTSD, TBI, it's has some profound impact.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you guys for doing what you do for the veterans. It's so needed. There's a lot of trauma that, especially like being in wars and seeing what they are seeing that they face, and it's hard to let go of the traumas. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, um, Neurogen for other things? Like, I'm just thinking like Alzheimer's, dementia. Does it help retrain people to get out of that as well too? Because that's becoming more and more common these days, unfortunately.
Definitely. I mean, I can never say that Eurogen or Neurogen can cure anything, but we can certainly aid in everything. So, all those, whether it's dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's, there are definitely imbalances going on within the brain. And so we're trying to alleviate those imbalances, to alleviate some of the issues that you're dealing with. While dementia and Alzheimer's, those are pretty extreme cases, we can certainly aid and get people to a more comfortable position within their life.
Does it ever reverse it or anything like that? Or is it like pretty much like a done deal, like when you have Alzheimer's and dementia? And this is because I just don't know enough about either.
Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't worked with Alzheimer's or dementia patients. I've worked with stroke victims who have, when I've seen them, they were barely able to walk, they weren't able to speak, and after their sessions, were walking and able to speak again. So those are some pretty extreme cases, but yes, I mean, I've seen some pretty drastic results like that. So while I'm not going to say that, yes, I can reverse your Alzheimer's or your dementia, we can definitely aid and assist in, getting you in the right path.
That's really cool that even with stroke victims that they're able to get their functions back as well too. That's a huge testament to the work that you guys do and to help aid in people's healing and people getting back to almost normal as much
Hmm.
as possible. So that's really amazing. I would love to go back and talk a little bit about, healing trauma in the body. And I know you mentioned that it helps with PTSD um and Max made a point that like uh when we are working with trauma, we want to get back into parasympathetic state. A lot of people are in fight or flight. How does Neurogen assist in helping people um heal from trauma? Is it just creating new neural pathways? Is it helping your brain calm down? Is it helping to alleviate some of that stress? Like, how does it actually work?
So you nailed it right on the head. It's one, it's creating new neural pathways, but two, yes, we're working directly with the nervous system. So there are multiple different protocols that I have. I have an advanced protocol sheet that's specific strictly to Neurogen. We have calming protocols and then we have stimulating protocols. One other thing that's different from our system to other neurofeedback systems is we offer 6 different levels of energy, one being the lowest, 6 being the highest. Level 1, you would never use on an adult, you would only use on infants. So level 2 is the lowest level of energy that you would use on adults. And so levels 1 through 3 are more calming levels of energy, and levels 4 through 6 are more stimulating. So it really depends person to person, what you're looking for. Nobody who comes in gets the same treatment. If somebody comes in with anxiety and depression and another person comes in with addiction and PTSD, they get a specific protocol directed specifically to them. And so, yeah, I mean, I can curate whatever works for you and whatever your needs. So if you come in and you have, severe PTSD or trauma, I would prefer to do more calming protocols on you to really relax your body and relax your stress. Whereas somebody who comes in, they're lacking motivation and they feel like they're in a funk, I would do more stimulating protocols and give them an energy boost to try to kickstart them to a better life.
That's really cool. That's really cool that you can do both and that you cater to each individual's each individual's like session. Do you do like an analysis like or what is the analysis that you do when people come in? I should say because like, some people could say I have PTSD or whatever it is, but then like the brain shows something else or to figure out and diagnose the protocol. Like what is the path that you take people through when they first come to you besides like just talking to them about it?
Yeah, so I offer a free 15-minute phone call consultation before sessions. So I go over, I ask any question, or I give the whole spiel about my background and what Neurogen is and what to expect during a session. But I also ask each individual, their issues and what they're looking to get out of this. But after that, I also send through before anyone comes in for their first session, I send through a client intake form that lists a number of different symptoms, anxiety, depression, PTSD, insomnia. And I have them rank them 1 through 10. One being you don't have it at all, 10 being, I'm really struggling with that. And so before each session, before they come in, I go over that. So I can kind of curate your protocol before you arrive. But also, another thing that I should mention is everybody who comes in for their very first session, doesn't matter your age, your gender, your issue, severity of issue. Everybody who comes in for their very first session gets the exact same treatment. And that's what we call a total balance at level 2. So total balance, we hit every part of the brain that we can hit, all 12 locations. And level 2 is our lowest level of energy. And we start out with that for the first session because that is our baseline. That's our minimal. I've never worked with certain individuals before when they come in. And so I want to see how they respond to the treatment. And so I start out really minimal to see kind of how you respond, and then we take it from there.
That's really cool that you do that and you have like a baseline and you can see how they react to it and their I guess progress from it. What are the
Mhm.
12 different centers you were talking about? Like what is that?
So it's common across. It's called the 12 or the 10-20 method. It's common across all neurofeedback in the world. It's just locations on the brain where you know to place the leads. So like I have a menu that I show everyone that shows all the different protocols, and then under each menu item there's a recipe which shows me exactly where I need to place the leads for certain issues. But yeah, I mean, I track and monitor each individual. And so obviously when I come in, the first thing I do is I sit down and I ask you, how are you doing? What did you experience? And we go from there. But I'm also tracking while I'm tracking your brainwaves during each session. So I take a video of each session. And so I can say, okay, this is where we started and this is where we finished.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, that's really cool that you're able to do that. I guess what are your like tips for people who are thinking about neurogen feedback? What and any like key pieces of advice for them to prepare themselves for this type of um session before and after? Because I think it's with some workout, I'm just thinking workouts in general, we want to prepare ourselves, we want to get ready, there's certain things that we eat and like certain like being certain mindset, like what kind of tips would you give people upon embarking on this journey?
And there's absolutely nothing you need to do to prepare. You don't have to change your diet. You don't have to, not drink this, do drink this. No, there's absolutely none of that. You can come in whether you're feeling tired, whether you're feeling anxious, whether you're feeling excited. It doesn't matter. There's no prep needed before or after. What to expect during a session? You come in. What I sit down, I talk with you. It's just one on one. Everything that happens in this office stays between us. I sit down, I assess how you were doing based, session to session. And then we go into the treatment. You do not feel a thing. It's really relaxing. But there's no prep that's needed before or after.
Well, that's great. It can really
Yeah.
fit into your life. I was just like, well,
Yeah.
maybe you have to like prepare yourself, or maybe you just have to like make sure that like afterwards you're like in a calm environment so it doesn't like affect anything.
No, I mean the only thing that I make sure each of my client, I always mention it right before they leave. The only thing that I mention is make sure they stay really hydrated after a session, because you just want to, with all the blood moving around in the brain, you want to make sure you're hydrated so you avoid those slight headaches. Other than that, there's, you can eat whatever, you can go to a concert, you can kind of do whatever you want. There's no limitations.
Oh, that's great. That's really
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
It really does fit into like your everyday life and helping you with your healing process. After people are done with their treatments, you've done finished the protocols, you've completed, their sessions and they've seen a significant improvement. You're mentioning like for yourself, you just do tune-ups. Like what are the tune-ups for? How often do you do tune-ups like once you get to that point?
Yeah. So the cool thing about our brain is, the more sessions you do, the longer lasting the effects. And your brain, after your first session is kind of like, what's going on here? So you might not see immediate balancing out. Um, but let's say you do you do 6 sessions and then you don't do a session for 5 months. Right when you come back and you do another session, your brain picks up right where it left off. And so it knows how to balance itself out quickly because it adapts to the therapy and it understands what is going on. So with tune-ups, once I get you to a good place where the issue that you came to see me for is, either subsided or alleviated, then it's entirely up to you. What I always say is I can't change somebody's circumstances. I can change how they respond to those circumstances. So life's going to happen. Let's say you're feeling fantastic, but you go out and you break your leg or you lose your job or something happens. Those stressors are always going to happen in life. That's just part of life. So when you're in those phases where you've been doing well but something chaotic happens and you feel imbalanced, you come back in. I call it a tune up, where it's just one session, to get you just leveled and back on your way. And then that should last you. Everybody's different, but for me, I do tune-ups every 4 months. Other people do tune-ups once a month. It varies person to person, but yeah, it's you essentially just come in for one session and kind of rebalance you out, get you back in line, and you're on your way.
That's really interesting. I wasn't thinking about like I guess kind of like working out. You got kind of once you get like to a good place and if you fall off or if you stop doing it, your body just goes back to the way it was a little bit and those like sessions in between are so important. I was like, "Oh,
Yep.
your brain gets healed, your new neural plasticity, so you don't have to go in as much." But what you said makes a lot of sense that you kind of have to maintain it. Otherwise, it'll just go back to the way it has been and I don't want to say you go backwards, but you just yeah, you just need a little fine tuning, I guess.
Exactly. Just a quick little tune up.
Yeah. Um, I guess what are your favorite what is your favorite practices within Neurogen? Do you have any like favorite types of, things that you get to work on within your practice?
I do. I mean, one of my most common, most sought after protocols that I do, it's a combination of doing motivation with executive function. The way I describe that protocol is it kind of feels like you're on Adderall without Adderall. You just feel extremely productive. You have really helps with mental clarity. Your task management and task performance goes through the roof, but you don't have the jitters of Adderall. So I'm somebody who I oftentimes procrastinate. And so sometimes I have, a bunch of emails I need to send out and I just can't do it. I can't get to it. If I do an executive function and a motivation protocol, the next day I'm sitting at my computer like firing away. So that's one of my most common protocols. Um, but I mean, it really depends on person to person. I see all walks of life, all different issues. So what works for one person might not be what the other person needs. So everybody's different, but that is probably like, that's what I call my bread and butter. A lot of times when people they come in for that executive function motivation, that's when they have that major breakthrough of like, wow, okay, I really feel better here.
Wow, I feel like I need that one.
Yeah, I
Sounded
know.
like
We all do.
motivation too.
We all do.
I'm like, how often can I do? Can I do it every day so that I'm
Yeah.
like stay motivated? How long does it last?
Well, that's the thing. It's
Motivation.
the more sessions you do, the longer lasting the effects. So when I do that session, I often am feeling those effects for, a week or two after.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
motivation for me doing that because I definitely am a procrastinator, recovering, hopefully, procrastinator. Max asks, is there any possibility to have this as a self-serve medical device with an app in the future, or is that something that you guys have looked at or would consider, or people?
Unfortunately not. It is a very in-person therapy. It's kind of like acupuncture. You can't really do acupuncture, via Zoom. You have to be in person, giving the treatment to the individual. I if you become a practitioner, my sister lives in Amsterdam and she's a practitioner over there. She's the only practitioner over there. So whenever she needs a session, she just kind of sits in front of a mirror and gives herself a session, which you can do. But unfortunately, no, it's not a self-serve medical practice. It's something you have to come in to see me for sessions.
There was another question by Max about the experiences for that people have during like events like the Grateful Giraffes had an event called Rhythm. You were at that giving away sessions so people can try it versus in your office in isolation. Like, are those different types of sessions? Are you just giving people a taste, or what's the difference in the experience?
Yeah, so when people like the sessions I was doing at Rhythm on Friday, for instance, those are what I said when I give every first time client the same session. Excuse me. It's just the total balance at level two. So it's that baseline because, that's what I give with any first time client. That's across the board, that never changes. But as far as combining it with other therapies, 100%. I mean, I've partnered with acupuncturists. We work with a number of different health and wellness facilities in San Diego, where the company was founded. I've partnered with chiropractors to great success. And one thing myself, actually, I have used when I was going through everything that I was going through last year. I combined Neurogen with ketamine therapy, and that was wonderful for me. So I did ketamine infusions, and a number of hours later, I went home and then did Neurogen, and that was a game changer for me. Really, really, really helped me out.
Wow, that's amazing. We actually
Yeah,
have a lot of ketamine facilitators, I think, within our draft. So maybe there's a partnership there eventually.
yeah,
But that's really cool that you do this. Like, and it's just so amazing like how healing our brains can be with the right stimulus and the right protocols put in place and how we can really like optimize our brain and using it. And working with it. So I really commend you and your family for the work that you guys do. Do you have any, last advice for anybody, like, or any key takeaways that you want people to walk away with from watching, this fireside chat?
yeah. I mean, I think I've said it earlier, but Neurogen can benefit everyone. Whether it's the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or you're, the bottom barrel of, a startup. It's everybody has certain imbalances, and it's a non-invasive procedure. It's not a procedure, but it's not invasive. You do not feel a thing. It's extremely gentle. It cannot hurt you. It can only help you. So I mean, I want everybody to give this a try. That's kind of my life's work because I am such a believer in this. And so, I want to give everybody the opportunity to give Neurogen a try because I believe so wholeheartedly in the efficacy of it.
Thank you so much. I love your passion behind it, and I love that you want to spread the mission. And we just are so incredibly grateful for you being a part of this community, for you sharing your wisdom with all of us, for you, doing the work that you do for the veterans and like the community in general, and just making this world a better place by healing, issues that people have. They're not sure how to heal, and giving people another modality and option to do that. So we really thank you for the work that you do, and the service that you provide.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak the giraffes. I love being part of the group, and so yeah, thank you for the opportunity. This has been great.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Jack.
My pleasure. Max, let me know when you need another session.
Sounds good. This week or next.
Okay, sounds great.
Scheduling it out. I'm gonna be messaging you as well. So
Okay, sounds great.
sounds good. Thank you everyone for being on, and thank you, Jack, again for being on